Today, we've got a hot topic. We're talking about the Trump accounts have officially been instated. We're going to talk about what they are. Our boy GC has done some really interesting research of what it can mean for your family, how you can kind of like adapt this to real estate investing. And it's really interesting because it's all happening around the same time as 401ks that are at an all-time high, and yet our confidence in retirement as Americans is at an all-time low. And then we're going to address a question from the patron Santorius who asked, what happens when you hand over your real estate portfolio to your heirs, right? So it's going to be a meaty show today. Welcome everybody to the weekly edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, a man that I affectionately like to call GC because he's got the genius concepts, knows how to generate cash flow, and is a great co-host. And because his name is Greg Cohen. Say hello, GC.
Hello, everybody. Fantastic to be with you today.
That being said, Greg, we got some breaking news, an update on last week's HomeStep fundraising program. GC, you got some good news for us, don't you?
We came to you guys. We asked for your help and love and support to donate to the JWB Cares Welcome Home Fund. This is the fund that makes 8 new JWB renters turn into 8 new first-time home buyers with your love and support. We set a goal for ourselves just in this community in 1 week or less to raise $5,000. And guess what, guys? We did it. We raised over $5,000. All of you, our little neck of the woods here in this online community here, we did that. And we collectively are a part of a much bigger mission here to change the lives of those 8 families and many more. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm so blown away with your love and support and generosity, and just incredibly appreciative.
Last year, we set a record at how much?
Last year in our community, we raised $2,500.
$2,500. This year, we doubled it. In just 1 week, the community showed up. For those of you that are new here, JWB is not just focused on developing Jacksonville and raising home price appreciation and driving value for investors. We're also committed to plugging Jacksonville residents into the economic flywheel that we're all a part of investing here in Jacksonville, because that is what creates a healthy ecosystem. And this HomeStep program is a way to turn renters into homeowners, because as we know, the average American renter has about what?
$8,000 in net worth.
$8,000 in net worth. The average American homeowner has what?
$400,000
in net worth. And as this idea of creating a healthy rental property ecosystem has to do with rising median incomes and rising prosperity, so people can continue to pay these rents and get the value from it, and everybody kind of like benefits from it. So turning renters into homeowners is a core initiative that, as we talked about last week, was validated by this new federal law that we passed on for housing, right? Turning developers, incentivizing them to create home ownership programs as you're doing it in order to continue to bring supply and help solve the housing crisis. So really pumped that as a community we did our part. I contributed, Greg contributed. I assume most of you folks that are here contributed, and really thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really cool to be a part of that.
100%. And if you all would like to continue to donate, you still can. We did something special last week. For anybody who donated $500 or more, they would get a ticket to Summit. And Summit tickets cost $400 each. That is our flagship conference event once a year. It'll be in next April, and we're still doing that. So if you would like to donate and you'd like to get a free Summit ticket, go ahead, put $500 in there. It's basically the cost of the Summit ticket, and you will feel amazing. Just send an email to info@JWB Companies. We'll give you the link to donate. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Awesome, GC. And so that being said, we got another breaking news, GC. Some breaking news about JWB and their rankings in Jacksonville these days. What is it, GC?
We got another award I wanted to pass along to you guys. Every year, the Jacksonville Business Journal ranks the top property management companies locally, and JWB was ranked the #2 residential property management company. And so we're really proud of that. We were actually #2 last year. And that is ranked on property management revenue dollars. So we're very proud of #2. some of you might be saying, who's number one? And number one is like a crazy property management company that does like pretty much every type of property management. So they do like marinas and single family rentals and a lot of multifamily apartment complex, which we don't focus as much on. So we like to say, and what the numbers validate, is that we are the number one single family residential property management company in Jacksonville. So very, very proud of that. Nice to be recognized again, and a community win, a team win for all of us here.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's always good to be part of number one over here, betting with it.
There you go.
You know, that's a great award to get. As a real estate investor myself that does business with JWB, for me, that award means when you are at a certain scale, it de-risks things for me, and it affords me certain things that I wouldn't be able to get by myself, or if I was doing business with a smaller business, namely the fact that you all spend, what is it, like about $7 million a month in construction costs?
Yeah.
You spend about $7 million a month in construction costs. That means that you have a certain level of pricing access. You have a certain level of service, preferential service when there's emergencies. I know that my houses are going to get taken care of if there's a storm or something like that, because when you're the big game in town and contractors have you as a big part of their business, you know, they're gonna treat you a certain way, and that comes, you know, that's to the benefit of the investor like myself.
There you go.
All right, cool. All right, GC. So let's talk about these Trump accounts, right?
Yeah.
It got cemented, right? It's happening. These Trump's accounts are happening. As we thought about talking about this a couple of weeks ago and wanted to make a show about it, I just want to say we're not a political channel in any way. We're calling him Trump accounts, whether you know, love Trump, hate Trump. It's the name of it. It's called trumpaccounts.gov.
Yeah.
Obamacare is also called Obamacare, right? So we're just referring it to the name. So please decouple from the name or whatever it is. This thing as an initiative, right? The TLDR is essentially, there is now a retirement vehicle, there's an investing vehicle for America's youth that is under 18 years old that allows for them to contribute $5,000 a year to start building net worth, right? From the moment that they're born till the moment that they turn 18. There's a certain population that also gets a free government sponsored $1,000 to get the thing started. And it's essentially, you know, for those of you that have been watching the show and have been following along, 401ks weren't always around, right? Like 401ks kind of like came around in like the late 80s, early 90s.
I was going to say probably the 70s, but 70s or 80s, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Something like that, right? Like we transitioned from like pensions to these kinds of like ways of saving for our own retirement. And that's now the way that things are done, right? Like this is a new context. This is a new thing that happened, where, you know, before, in order to save in some kind of a retirement account for a child, you had to go figure it out on your own.
Right.
You had to play offense around this. This is a new kind of like ability to do this that's going to lead to a bunch of different things, right? Like number one, actually, I'll kind of like give it to you, right? That's the summary. You can get $1,000 for free from the government if you live in a certain zip codes, but more importantly, everybody can now invest up to $5,000 a year into their children's retirement that they get at 18 and they have control of, and then that sets them up to have a certain amount of like net worth and stuff like that going forward. You see, when this stuff came out and you started reading about it, what were your initial thoughts?
I was pumped.
Yeah,
really, really pumped, because I went back to myself, 14 years ago and 12 years ago when my kids were born. And, I started to run the math at that time for my kids. And of course, there were no accounts like this that were available at that moment. And I said, you know what, I understand the power of compounding, and I understand the power of investing when you're young.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm so thankful for myself that, the stars aligned and I learned how to do this when I was 23 years old.
Yeah.
But even starting at 23, I said, man, what if I learned how to do this, or it was done for me when I was 1 year old or 0 years old? Like, how much farther along would we be?
Yeah.
And so I ran those numbers 14 years ago, 12 years ago, and I had to really try hard to figure out a way to be able to allow that to happen for my kids. And it wasn't easy to do that.
Yeah.
And now we're making it easy. When the government is seeding the accounts of $1,000, and I don't believe it's limited by zip codes. Maybe somebody can chime in if that's the case, but I believe it's by year that they were born. Kids are born. Mm-hmm. So kids who were born in 2025 through 2028 will receive $1,000 seeding investment from the U.S. government mm-hmm. for their Trump account. And then the real power is, how can friends, family, others who want to support that child, grandchild, niece, nephew, friend, I think we are all surrounded by people that, want to help the next generation and especially in their families. And now we have a vehicle where they can align their efforts into this vehicle for their child or grandchild, niece or nephew, and it can grow in a tax deferred manner. So we're kind of like supercharging this thing. When we think about the power of compounding, we're making this possible for the masses here, and we're adding in an element of tax deferred growth, mm-hmm. and there's a whole much more possibility. So I'm a huge fan of this. I instantly connected to when I was a first-time parent, and now I think that this is accessible for everybody.
Yeah. When you and I first started talking about it, I saw you light up about the power of compounding interest. And, if I'm being honest, when I first started learning about compounding interest, it was really when I was setting up my 401k fresh out of college. And it just all seems so abstract to me.
Right.
And the idea of having a vehicle to allow your children to participate in it, make it easy, and then to get to 22, 23, and now when it's time for me to start investing into myself, it not being as abstract, me seeing like the power of it in order to validate the fact that I want to start doing this, seems like a really valuable thing. And we're going to go through kind of like some X's and O's in a presentation that you put together so that we can really, really start to understand the power of it. For me, I can tell you that when I grew up, I don't know if you know this, but I grew up in Miami.
I've heard.
And for whatever reason, where I grew up in Miami, up until I was like 12 years old, all my friends were like sons of Cubans. Everybody was Hispanic. And then I went to this different school for 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And that school was at least like 50% Jewish. Okay. So I started going to bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, right? It was honestly one of the best years of my life, right? Like it was just like a bar mitzvah every year. And I still have a lot of friends in the Jewish community. And what I've realized as we've gotten older is that, at these bar and bat mitzvahs, the Jewish community has this tradition of gifting money to the bar or bat mitzvah kid. Right. And I've seen my friends over their lives tap in, like the idea of like, oh yeah, I use my bar mitzvah money for it, my bat mitzvah money to buy my first house, to like do these different kinds of things is something that became very, very real to me later on in like my 20s and 30s of seeing this like power of compounding interest that happened at a gift that happened at a kid's when they were 13, let it sit for the next 15 years, right? And what that became for them. I was like, gosh, man, what a head start in life. Mm-hmm. And it's like a beautiful kind of like case study of a community coming together to agree on this idea that like, let's gift kids financial independence in their future. And I feel like this Trump account now opens that up for everybody. Now we have the ability to not just friends, not just family when they're born and like your parents to like put into it, but this is going to open up a whole new ecosystem of helping children invest these Trump accounts. Like I think we're, within like in the next 5 minutes, someone's going to come out with like the plugin for Evite of instead of giving my kids some toy I'm going to throw away when they're 2 years old, here's where to give $25 to their Trump account.
100%.
Right? Like, and that's going to like become this waterfall of us as a community starting to like look out for each other and pitch in for like our friends, kids, kind of financial futures in these moments where we probably would have blown 20 to $100 on like some plastic toy that you probably have too much of and it makes too much noise.
I think I might love that idea of just not having plastic crap toys given to kids. Yeah. As much as I love compounding interest. But yeah, I just look at this and we'll run the numbers here in a second. So you'll see the power of this. Yeah. So I love the numbers of it. But I think what you're talking about is an education tool, a mindset tool. And you mentioned how for yourself, it was kind of like intangible understanding compounding interest. But if you could sit a child down at age 18 and they probably didn't pay any attention to their Trump account or whatever, but sit down with them and say, hey, listen, this is what's in your retirement account today. Let me show you how you got there and how little it took for you to get there from a dollar's perspective because of compounding interest and returns. That might be something that unlocks something in that young child that then shapes a better future for them. So imagine a whole population that not just financially is better off, but from a mindset perspective, understands something at a deeper level that they may never have understood before.
I think it's really cool. And I think it's really cool. And again, this is going to open a whole ecosystem around children's investment, education, and avenues to invest for children in the long term.
Absolutely.
Right. Like that's really what I believe in the most is like once something like this opens up, there's going to be all these other externalities that we didn't know about that I think are going to be really cool. Somebody's going to really figure it out, right? Like somebody's going to figure out like, there's going to be the parent that's out there like, follow me for advice on how your kid retires at 25.
Yeah.
Like,
I just think it's a ease of access now is a huge obstacle. And we have removed so many barriers by this thing that, is now real.
Yeah. And MJ is saying here in the Q&A, we're focused on the 529 instead. I believe for a family focused on education beyond high school, that's a better account. That said, we did open a 530A for the free money. What are your thoughts on which to focus upon? From my research in this stuff, like there is that 529, it's specifically for college. This one is for, it could end up being for college. It could be for other things. Did you kind of like look into the nuances between them?
Yeah. And I don't think it has to be an either or. And it doesn't, you can have different levels that you go for each of these. I think if you just take the $1,000 that the government is giving to you and you just have that for your Trump account and then it just grows, like could put some expectations for growth, like it's going to be a win. There's no reason to not do it.
Yeah.
But I think there are some nuances between which of your retirement accounts is better suited for your goals. For example, the taxation is a little bit different between the 529 and the Trump account. Is it tax deferred? Are you taxed on the way in when you contribute? Those are some differences that I would encourage you to look through. Probably won't have enough time to get into the pros and cons of all that on today's show. But it's a positive thing, and it can be in addition to, at a bare minimum, I don't see any reason to not do it. So it should be in addition to. Does this mean that you're going to want to fully fund this over some of your other retirement alternatives or education or healthcare alternatives? Maybe, maybe not. It's more of a personal decision.
Yeah, makes sense. And that's a good time to get into this kind of like case study that you did and to talk about that this is, we're not financial advisors. We are here to, I'm blanking out on what I'm supposed to say.
I got this. We're not financial advisors. This isn't financial planning. We're a couple of guys that are doing our best. These numbers are estimates, but they're really cool. So use them for educational purposes. Don't listen to the show and just start throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars anywhere.
Yeah, do your own research. All right, GC. So this is a presentation that GC is going to storytell through because I love what he did here. But essentially, this is where we're at, right? Like the federal start is $1,000. Eligible for children born 2025 to 2028, annual contribution of $5,000 per year. Who can contribute? Federal government, family, friends, and employers. And once you start investing in birth, you can let compounding do the rest. GC, tell me the story that you put together here.
Yeah, so I went back to me, 14 years ago, and I literally ran these calculations, and I said, well, if I could just get some of this money set aside for my child, and it grew at 8% a year, how much would it be worth at different times in their life?
Yeah.
And so I literally ran these numbers. So I wanted to run these numbers for you. Now it's a little bit different now because you've got government seeding of $1,000 here with the Trump accounts. But beyond that, if we can just rally, maybe some of this money is already being given to your kid or your grandkids or nieces or nephews. Or maybe we can make something that is somewhat doable for the average family out there to start contributing. How much more would your son, child, niece, nephew, grandchild be ahead at age 18? And so here's what the numbers are. If you just have a Trump account and it starts with $1,000 at birth, and you assume that it grows at 8% a year, which is roughly what the stock market has grown at for the last 50, 100 years on average, at age 18, it's worth $4,000. Now, is that pretty cool by itself?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, let's just accentuate the positive here, right? That's $4,000 in a retirement account for your son, child, grandchild, whatnot, right? That by itself is helping us in our conversations to be able to teach our children, grandchildren about how did this happen.
Yep.
So it's a wonderful thing if that's all it is. But then I said to myself, what if we could just find a way to contribute $100 a month for 50 months to get to a total of a $5,000 contribution through the family? If all we were able to do is to contribute $100 a month in addition to that $1,000, how much more would compounding work in our favor to get us to a higher amount? And you can see the number on the screen here. That same investment now is worth over $21,000.
This isn't even maxing out the $5,000 per year, right?
No.
This is essentially $100 a month for essentially 4 years. And what that compounds at to age 18.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Starting early, before they're even age 5, you're getting this money in, and then it's compounding, it's growing for you. This is the power of starting young. And so very, very substantially different. And that is a great tool and a great way, of course, to seed the future retirement account of our nation.
Pretty good. So what's this next one, GP?
So then I ran it all the way out, and I said, all right, well, my son, who, was born 12 years ago, right? What if I started to run this thing out until he was age 58?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now I've gone past age 18 and was worth like $21,000. And if I contributed just $100 a month before he was 5 years old, and then it ran out to age 58, we're looking at about a $500,000 retirement account that you can create for your child based on some assumptions which have proven true over decades and decades and decades. Is this like not life-changing and super powerful? Every child in our country now can have this or close to this based on how much we can also contribute. And the number doesn't have to be incredibly significant. We're talking about $100 a month.
Yep.
And, not everybody can do that, but, I bet that there are people in your network that love your son, your child, your niece, your nephew, and maybe they bought them some plastic toy for $25 that they threw away anyways.
Yeah, totally.
What if that became the donation that was that $100 a month and helped the child?
Yeah, or we focus less on like inviting Spider-Man over for the birthday party and put that money to this, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, right? This idea of if we can, what I like about this GC is that it's a very like approachable target to get at, right? How do you solve for putting $5,000 into this account that is already going to exist, that you already have access to by the time that your kid is 5 years old? And what does that mean for the remainder of their life?
Exactly.
I think bringing it down to like a small thing, and that's what we're trying to do here on the show in general, right? Is like take not your average approach to financial independence, right? And this seems very, very doable for people in our audience, for someone to be sharing out there. Somebody can go out there and just create a content stream around how do we get to $5,000 before 5 years old, right? Like it's got like a nice little hook point to it.
I like that.
And then these results of, getting to age 58 with almost $500,000 in net worth is outpacing where we're at right now as a country, right? So like, how can we kind of like do this? This seems like a pretty straightforward path.
Here we go.
Yeah, pretty good, man. All right, what else we got here?
Yeah, so that's the feel-good part of the show.
Yeah.
Right. The next part of the show here is talking about how are we actually doing in our retirement.
Yeah.
So as we were preparing for the show, I felt like there was a tale of two cities here.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about Trump accounts and the the vehicle that is created, I couldn't be more fired up for our country.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
But when I look at how we're actually doing today as far as retiring, I'm pretty sad and I'm pretty disappointed for our country.
Yeah. The headline is we've never had more money in our retirement accounts, and we've never been less confident in our ability to retire comfortably.
Exactly.
So that juxtaposition bears looking at, right?
And the crazy thing is we have way more in our 401ks today than we ever have before.
Yeah.
We have way more today than we had last year.
Mm-hmm.
Or in this case, I ran this analysis back to 2020 and I pulled some stats. And this is from a report that Vanguard puts together. And it basically kind of does a snapshot for how Vanguard clients are doing in retirement. Vanguard has however many billions under their management. So it's a really good kind of cross-section of our country overall. And what you're finding is that there are a lot of things that are growing, okay? Number one, plan participation. If I compare 2020 to 2025, people in retirement account plans are growing. It went from 85% to 86%. That's a really good thing. We want more people in a plan.
That sounds good.
Right?
Yeah.
Positive. All right. Total savings rate going up. So we had 11% savings rate in 2020. People are saving more in 12% in 2025. Positive. You know, the way that we're doing that is we're forcing people to become investors in their retirement accounts by auto enrolling people in retirement accounts. That wasn't the case. I don't know when that switched, but it wasn't the case in 2020.
It's a big context shift there, right? Like the behavioral economics kind of approach to this thing was you used to have to opt into your 401k account. Now you got to opt out of your 401k account, right? So we're kind of like trying to help you, man.
Exactly.
You know, like
and
these kinds of things.
The employer match, right? You don't get it unless you're in the plan. So we're kicking and dragging, we're dragging investors, Americans, kicking and screaming into investors. It, right?
Yeah, correct.
Professionally managed allocation. It was 62%. It's 69% now in 2025, which to me is great one way or another. Doesn't matter. You know, skill level will determine that. But you know, what that's telling me is people need it done for them as much as possible, and they want it to be on autopilot. And that's okay. That's a win, right? I'm going to skip the next one in just a second because we're going to talk about that. But there's some other positive things. Continuous participants whose balance grew year over year. 94% of balances grew in 2025 versus the previous year. That's awesome. People have more money in their 401ks, and the median balance increased as well. So the dollars are growing, more people are involved in them, and they're saving more. Those are all really good things, right? But here's the problem. Hardship withdrawals have gone up 3.5 times versus what they were in 2020. What's a hardship withdrawal?
Unforeseen expense that you have to take out of a retirement account and pay a penalty for, and have to use it, not necessarily to invest as much as to pay for something that you didn't see coming.
Well, you're right about everything except the penalty. So in most 401k plans, you're allowed to actually take a hardship withdrawal and actually not pay the penalty. But people don't want to do this, right? It is the last resort to be able to have funds to handle your lifestyle or whatever big expense you have before you make a next costly decision, right? And so we're seeing our country take out hardship withdrawals at a staggering rate at a time when their balances are going up, when they're investing more in their 401ks, when they're saving more. And so what we're creating is more saving for the future, but we can't take care of today as a country. We are much more financially fragile. And what this means to me, it's further indication. Like, we knew the model was broken. We knew the retirement model was broken before balances, 94% of balances increased last year. It was broken last year. It was broken the year before. But it's just reinforcing that no matter if the 401ks continue to go up, it's not going to land in a place where we're helping people retire better.
Yeah. This is, it's interesting because you look at the numbers before and it's like slight increases. This is a big increase, right? So, you know, if it's trending this way, you know, maybe the data is we have more than ever, but like we're also taking out more than ever. It might be completely negating all this good stuff that we're doing, right? And at the end of the day, if the whole point of it is like staying in it for a long time value of money, the more we take out, the more we're hurting ourselves in the future for compounding.
Like, this is the steroids part of your investment portfolio that can grow tax deferred. You know, you don't want to take it out. While you might not pay a penalty with a hardship withdrawal, you're paying a penalty because your growth is not going to be anywhere close to what it could be had you just kept it in investing. And then on the last slide there, just to point it out, it's not an anomaly, right? Year over year over year, it has gone up as far as that hardship withdrawal at a period of time where we created more wealth in this country than we ever had, probably over the last few years. And this is really where it landed. So I took that report and I was like, all right, let me connect this to the sentiment that we have as Americans. And so Gallup releases polls every year. How confident are you as an American in your retirement? And I thought this was really telling. Goes all the way back to 2002. In 2002, 59% of Americans felt comfortable in their retirement. We have had a 16-point drop since 2002. It has largely gone down a lot It went up a little bit from 2015 to 2020, but it went right back down again in 2025. We sit here today, 43% of Americans, only 43% of Americans are confident in their retirement account, yet they look at their 401ks and they're higher today.
Yeah.
It's just not working. And I think putting this together and showing this, to me, reinforces the point that we need a better model.
GC, these numbers they're easy to understand, but hard to look at. Like it is, you would think that if we are saving more than ever, we should be feeling more confident than ever. I think there's a lot of different things we can point to, right? Like I feel like we're in about the last like 7 years have had the most kind of like weird ups and downs that I remember, like thinking, and the rate of change is staggering, and now AI is coming, and all these different kind of like things have continued to come. But if I was to think from like a first principle standpoint, it really goes back to something we've been talking about a lot on the show. And it's this idea that we're living longer. Like when I think when all these things were, I don't know what life expectancy was in like the late 70s when we came up with a 401k or whatever, right? But I can pretty much assure you that life expectancy has increased. Right. We're living longer, right? So like whatever we were planning on came with a certain assumption. I think as the world has become more interconnected, we are exposed to more things that we didn't really, right? Like the interconnectivity of markets now creates these things like the run on Silicon Valley Bank or the GameStop thing or right, like all these like weird things that have to do with like the speed of decision making, the liquidity of money, the access to that, and the like group think affecting us at a scale that has never happened before, which leads to more and more of these black swan events that continue to happen.
Yes, but I think if I wrap all that back up into, we got to educate. Even with Trump accounts now, if all you have is a Trump account, but you don't understand how much just $100 a month might change the future for your son or your daughter, you're not gonna experience it in that life-changing fashion, which it can be. So education is, I think, the greatest opportunity for us.
Yeah. Like I love how you said it, education and community, right? Because I think anytime you're gonna take whatever everyone else is doing that everybody's already incentivized to do and do it slightly different, you need to be surrounded by people that have done it in order to like make it feel safe to a certain extent. And at the end of the day, education through mentorship happens frictionlessly in community, which is one of the big reasons why we started the show. It's a big reason why we do what we do, to put all this type of stuff together. I think it's great, man. I know that we thought that we were gonna talk a lot about this idea of what you can pass on to the next generation when you are investing in rental properties versus other, things. We're not going to have a lot of time for this, GC, but you put together this slide around it. Can you give kind of like a quick summary of this? Is it even worthwhile?
Yeah, no, I think we can. I mean, this was a really important question that our patron Michael Santorius, emailed in. And the essence of his question was, hey, you know what? We talk about like legacy and retirement planning, and then what do you do with your portfolio when you pass? And there's some education that we can have around what the most economically or tax efficient way to go about it is. But I think his question was more of like, what are you doing? Like, do people really pass along their portfolio of rental properties to their kids? How do they do it? And if they do it, how is it done well? And so I think, for the limited amount of time that we have now, and happy to dive more into it on the next show, what I wanted just to show you guys is that it is very economically advantageous to consider holding on to rental properties and passing those properties to your future generation. And I just did a quick economic analysis here. I'm not an accountant, not a CPA. Know that right off the bat. I just am a real estate investor who's been doing it for 20 years. And I just pointed out a couple of things that would cost you money if you go down the route of selling properties and then passing cash to your heirs versus holding the assets and passing the properties. If you sell your properties ahead of time before you pass, you're going to have selling, holding, and closing costs. And so in this analysis, I assumed you had 3 properties that are each worth $250,000. And so you have a portfolio of $750,000. If you sell those 3 properties, it's going to cost you about 75 grand. But in addition, you're going to be paying taxes on the gain that you had from those assets. And this can be a little bit complicated when we think about depreciation and taxable gain. Maybe we'll save that for another day. But ultimately, it's going to cost you about $170,000 in both hard costs and in taxes that you'll need to pay if you sell the asset and then pass cash along to your heirs. Versus that same rough example, if you just hold those 3 properties and then you pass it to your heirs, you don't pay the cost to sell and the closing costs and the commissions and whatnot. So you don't have that cost. So you save that $75,000. And then you also have this wonderful thing called the step up in basis. And what this does is it basically allows you to step up your basis, your cost basis in the properties. And you don't have to pay the same taxable gain that you would have had to pay if you sold the properties before. It's this beautiful rule that is allowed by owning single family rental properties that the IRS gives us. It's called the step up in basis. And so if you look at that and you think about from an economic perspective, which is better and is it really worth it to consider it? In this example alone, it's worth about $170,000 of more wealth that's preserved for your family if you consider holding and passing the properties to your heirs.
Do you see, this is all stuff that we've, and Pamela Myers said we should do an entire show on this topic. I'm like, that was what this show was going to be. And then you got really nerdy with like the possibilities of these new Trump accounts or whatever.
Right.
So we'll dive more deeply into this, but I feel like we've talked a lot about this idea of step up in basis. I've heard this term multiple times. I'd like to just kind of like say what I think it is, and then you correct me. I think is a lot of the ways that we do the learning on this show is I get it wrong and then you get it right. Is the step up in basis essentially mean that when I get a rental property, if I was to get like a lump of cash given to me, that lump of cash is worth what that lump of cash is worth, and I have to pay taxes on it, right?
Okay.
If I get a rental property given to me, and again, I'm saying this in an inheritance situation. If I get a rental property given to me at that moment, is the step up in basis essentially mean I don't have to pay taxes on like what it appreciated during the time?
Bingo.
I essentially inherit it at the cost of what the property was originally worth when it was first purchased, so I don't have to pay as much taxes. Is that kind of it?
You don't have to pay taxes on the appreciation. You don't have to pay taxes on the amount that you depreciated tax-wise as well.
Okay.
So, and this is what the step up in basis means. It means your basis is what amount it's what you started with as far as your market value minus what you depreciated from a tax perspective. And that becomes a lower amount. And then when you take that lower amount and you go and sell the property, you then have to pay the taxes on the gains. And the gains are made up of your appreciation plus how much you depreciated. So I think I'm making this more complex, but ultimately what you were saying was right. It's you're not paying the taxes on the appreciation of the asset, nor are you paying taxes on the depreciation, the tax savings component of it that you experienced to do it. So it gets kind of complex, hard to simplify, but ultimately, if you didn't do this and you sold properties, you got to pay taxes on the gains. The gains are made up of what you depreciated plus appreciation. If you go down the path of passing it along to your heirs, you get this beautiful thing called the step up in basis. And it basically just says whatever your basis was, but here it now is market value. And I'm way oversimplifying here. But now you don't have to pay any taxes on the gains if you sold it right afterwards because the basis is higher.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. So essentially, it sounds like somewhere in there, things cancel out so that you get to keep your money. Kind of like how I get to keep more of my cash flow every year with my rental property because I'm depreciating it year over year as well. There's a similar mechanism to that when it comes to inheritance, and it's called step up in basis, essentially.
I like that. It's
right.
good enough for
Okay,
for
that's
us.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, so we'll do a deep dive. Originally we are going to talk about the step up in basis. We're going to talk about kind of like the strategies. I was going to pick Gregg's brain on how he thinks about it, right? Like Gregg owns multiple rental properties. He's got 2 kids. I know that you're very heady about it, and we're going to talk about kind of like how to educate, how this like transition would work, how you're thinking about it, not from an expert standpoint, just from a pragmatist standpoint, and like how you're thinking about it. So we'll do that in a future episode. I know that next week we are going to talk about. We recently did a comparison between the Memphis market and the Jacksonville market,
Mm-hmm.
and it raised a whole bunch of questions around the JWB performa, right? Like how JWB analyzes properties and puts it forth to investors. So we're going to do a deep dive into the JWB performa and the numbers that they have in it, where those numbers come from, why they're important, and why they're so different than like every other kind of like turnkey rental property provider. So I'm really, really pumped about that. That's another thing that the community really wanted. I'm looking at you, MJ Rada. I know that you wanted that one, so we're doing that for you, bud. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. GC, man, it's very clear to me when we open up a subject and you go down like a super nerdy rabbit hole and start kind of like figuring out the different things. I love it, man. Like I'm curious what the community thought of this, because this is usually I'm the guy that's like, hey, this is here. I'm gonna go 1,000 yards down the field of like what's possible, and you're always the one kind of like, whoa,
Yeah.
taking it back. This was a moment where you really took an idea and then you vision casted of like what's really really possible
Yeah.
around the new concept, and I took a lot from it, and I think these kinds of things in like an ever changing world and an ever changing environment, it's like what's going to be possible with real estate based on how things are changing, and all this different like these different lenses in the world are super valuable for the community to like start to get excited about not just the past but the future. And I really appreciate it, man. I thought it was really cool.
I love it, man. I mean, I love this loop that we have, getting insight from the community. You come up with these show topics, and then I get to fill in the gaps. And when you connect something that combines how it can help a ton of people and specifically help kids, and it mixes in investing, like I'm all in all day, 8 days a week,
Yeah,
right?
totally,
Like
totally.
that's what motivates me. And so I love that you guys are here. Keep showing up. We'll keep doing what we do.
Yeah, cool. We had I think I don't know what the full number was because I was like enthralled in the storytelling, but we had 70, 80 people every single week so far. Lately, we had kind of gone down over the summer. It went down to 60. I think we got this like bump back of like summer's over, people are tagging back in. Our new normal is around 80 people. Let's see if we can get 100 people back
Awesome.
back to a new normal of 100 people. Tell your friends about the show. Send us ideas that you want to hear about, that you're hearing people asking you about real estate investing, specifically people doubting it, right? Like we love to kind of like take something that someone is saying, because the average advice out there is just not the lived experience of somebody doing it at your scale, seeing into the ecosystem. So bring us ideas as we are showing you. If you have a topic that's interesting to you, we will make a show about it, or we'll make part of a show about it, and we'll talk about it, right? So like, thank you to the community who takes an hour out of your day, middle of a Tuesday, to show up here. I know sometimes it's impossible to come to every show, but you come back, Venny, right? Like, and you make time for this, and like, it just isn't the same without people here. I think it's what makes this thing so special. So thank you for coming here, GC. Thank you for the nerdy thought process that you put into this and the storytelling. I really, really enjoyed it, man.
I put the nerd in nerd, man. I'm there. Thank you, guys.
Any advice for our community from now till the next show, till we see each other again?
Don't be average.
See ya.
See you.